Hi, everybody. My name is Adam Brendan. This is my talk on OSINT, online safety in this age of oversharing. First, we'll talk a little bit about myself. My name is Adam. I'm a cybersecurity practitioner. I've been in the industry for about 8 years. I worked in a bunch of different things, including education. I'm an analyst right now. There's a picture of my lovely family. I have a 7-month-old baby. He's awesome. Today, we're going to talk about OSINT. We're talking about OSINT strategies, OSINT tools, how to find information on the internet. Today, we will not be talking about how to break the law. We will not be talking about how to exploit systems. We will not be talking about how to bypass security controls or terms of service, right? Very important. The agenda, I'm not going to read out all the things, we'll get there, but this is kind of the agenda that we're talking about today. We're going to talk about privacy, again, the tools, the strategies that one can use to find open source intelligence. First, we need to talk about privacy. What is privacy? Privacy is the right to control your information. It's to control who and when gets your information, right? The owners decide what is exposed, when, and to whom. There's a couple definitions up here for PII and CUI. This is personally identifiable information and controlled unclassified information. This is OSINT. This is the data that is exposed on the internet. It's not classified, and it's just out there. There's some examples of what PII is, your name, social security, email address, things that are pretty benign on their own, but when they are correlated together, they can lead to some more information. CUI is HR records, contractor data, not necessarily secrets, but definitely something that you want to keep secure and away from the public eye. Okay, this is why privacy matters. There's a myth that a lot of people say, I hear my dad says it all the time, I got nothing to hide. Yeah, you do. You got bank records, you have social media information, your location, et cetera, et cetera. Scammers, stalkers, employers, state actors. There are a bunch of different organizations and entities that are out there looking for your information to exploit you. So we talk about who governs privacy. There are some legal frameworks in place to govern privacy. A big one is the GDPR. It's out of the EU. However, there are any organization that's trying to do international business, it needs to adhere by the GDPR. So you see a lot of organizations here in the United States adhering to these rules, right? And these rules they're interesting. They talk about the right to be forgotten, right? The right to consent to whether or not these huge, massive organizations are actually taking your data. What data are they taking, et cetera. There are local regulations, not so much here in Idaho, but California has a big one. And again, this is the CCPA. If organizations here in Idaho are trying to do business with California, which is the largest, most prosperous state in our country, they have to adhere to these CCPA rules. There are other privacy regulations, whether it's HIPAA, FERPA, PCI, et cetera. There's industry regulations that talk about healthcare data, financial data, educational data, et cetera. Collecting OSINT is generally legal for the most part. But it can cross legal lines fast. If you use this data to stalk, to harass, to impersonate, that's when you start to breach systems. That's when you start crossing those legal lines, and we're not going to do that today. Okay, so now that we've talked about privacy, let's talk about OSINT itself, right? So OSINT stands for Open Source Intelligence, right? This is the collection and analysis of publicly available data. And OSINT really came from the military and the intelligence industries, but now OSINT is being used throughout the world, right? Healthcare industries are using it, employers are using it, recruiters are using it, social media influencers are using it. There's really not an industry that's not being touched or that's not using OSINT to gather information. Generally, they're using search engines, they're using social media, they're using public records, they're using job postings, satellite information, code repositories, et cetera, et cetera. Like, the more stuff goes on the internet, the more OSINT is out there. Again, OSINT is not hacking. We're not breaching systems, we're not impersonating, we're not social engineering, we're not breaching terms of service, et cetera. I want to make that very clear. When does information stop being open source? Again, I'm going to hammer this point one more time. When it's public, when When there's a system account that's being breached, when there's credentials being used, that's not OSINT. When you're using impersonation, when you're using some sort of deception, that is not OSINT. When you're using these tools to stalk, harass, break legal lines, these are not OSINT. I should have turned that text black. You could read it a lot better. Here we are. Okay, let's talk about the OSINT cycle. I noticed this is not the most updated version because I had a better graphic for this, so we'll see what else is left out here. This is going to be exciting. This is generally the OSINT cycle. We talk about identify, collect, verify, pivot, analyze. Now they call it a cycle, but it's really more of a mishmash, right? So you're gonna target something, you're gonna identify it, and then you're gonna verify it, right? You're gonna find the data that you're looking for, and then you wanna double check that. You wanna cross-reference that with other data. And once you can cross-reference that, you can verify it, you're gonna look for other data, you're gonna pivot. This is a big part of OSINT. You're gonna look around for more information. You're gonna look around to verify it, because there's a lot of information on the internet that's not true, believe it or not. Okay, so here are a couple strategies. Again, this is not the most updated. Anyway, data is messy. The internet is full of old data. It's full of incorrect data. And if you're looking for proper truth that's coming from intelligence, you need to verify that. And that's a big part of OSINT. Like you can get a nugget of truth from social media, but then you want to verify that with another tool, whether a public record, whether it be any other piece of information. And what's interesting is once you can verify that, you can find more, and then go verify that, and then find more, and then go verify that. It expands upon itself. Once you have a small nugget of truth, you expand upon that. Attackers don't need much. Attackers don't need much to get started because of that. They can expand once off as small nuggets of information. Okay, how can noobs find OSINT? Again, I had this so much prettier. We're doing great. It's my first talk, everybody. Thank you for being here. Listed here are a bunch of different tools that you could use, that anyone can use to find OSINT. The top one, the most important one, what do you think it is? Anybody? It's Google. Google's awesome. Google's the best. It has all the information. You can use Google Dorks. Has anyone used Google Dorks before? Yes, Google Dorks are a way to make Google better. You can search for specific types of information. You can search for specific pages. You could search with excluding specific pages. And we're going to talk about Google Dorks a lot more here in a minute. There are people and data brokers like True People Search, Spokeo, White Pages. A lot of them are kind of crap. They don't really give you a lot of good data. True People Search is very good. A lot of them are paid. If you pay for the service, they say they give you more. I didn't find that to be true. Other ones, these are username and social lookup, like Sherlock. If you give Sherlock a username, it'll go out to social media and other services to find copies of that username. There are the email and breach checks. This is have I been pwned? Does anyone use their? Yes, have I been pwned? It's excellent. It's have I been pwned? PWNED. Absolutely. Have I been pwned? It's a breach repository, right? So there are probably hundreds of breaches these days where companies have lost data and they've posted it on an open web or the dark web or whatever. Have I been pwned is a service that will correlate that data. You could input your email address or a credit card number, and it'll go to these breaches and let you know if that information has been shared publicly. Have I been pwned is a very useful tool in the OSINT library. Phone lookup, Truecaller, if you want to look up phone information, that's the best one I could find, and it's honestly not that good. Some of the information is outdated, and it'll tell you the carrier, but it won't tell you who the phone number belongs to, and like, who cares? Images, there's a couple really cool image tools like Google Reverse Image Search or TinEye. It'll look for other pictures. PimEyes, we're going to talk about that one. That one's the scary one, if you ask me. Other noob tools are the public records, idaho.gov, Ada County Register, Property Search, court records. There's countless different public records that are mandated by law to be public, and anyone who's looking for OSINT can use these tools to grab information. It's kind of scary, to be honest. Mapping location, Google Maps, everyone knows what that is. There's a lot of good OSINT on there. Zillow is surprisingly scary. You could go find people's, you could find people when they sold their house, if you have an address, what their house looks like on the inside, what's around, historical pictures. So anyway, Google Dorks. Anyway, I'm going to stop complaining about the format. These are some Google Dorks. You can't really see them very well because it's white on white. But the idea is that you can put in quotes first name, last name, put it in quotes. It'll find, Google will search the internet and find literal strings of your first and last name. You do the same thing with emails. You can do the same thing with passwords, credit card numbers, what have you. Some of the interesting ones here at the bottom of email and credential exposure over here on the right, site:pastebin.com. And your email. This is Pastebin is just it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a website that people paste blocks and blocks of information, and a lot of breaches are posted on Pastebin. So if you look for Pastebin, if you look for your email address, your name, anything like that, you might find something, and who knows what's out there, right? You could do the same thing with Flickr, Reddit, Strava, looking for usernames, looking for file types. So let's do this one, the next one. Again, you can't see it very well, but this one's really interesting. If you cite github.com and you put the words API key in quotes, you will get on GitHub and you will find API keys exposed on the internet. And this is very bad. This is a secret that you should not expose. And I did it last night, and there's a bunch. There's a bunch of API keys just sitting on GitHub. What are some good ones here? Sitecompany.com. So you do Microsoft.com. Give me 1 second. Microsoft.com, file type XLS. Looking for social security numbers. There are a bunch of different Excel spreadsheets just sitting on the open internet with clear text, social security numbers tied to names. Now imagine if you were a bad actor, what you could do with that. Do you guys want a loan? You guys get any credit cards taken out in your name? Because that's what happens. Question. Oh, good question. An API key, the API stands for Application Programming Interface. So what it is, it's a hook. It's a hook into an online tool that you could use to call specific services from that tool. Do you know what VirusTotal is? Or Spotify. Let's talk about Spotify. You can use Spotify API to create a playlist to grab information about a song, and it's code. It's not going to the browser, it's going to the code. And you need an API key. You need a secret. It's a password. It's a password for an application. No problem. Happy to answer any other questions as I'm going. Okay. This is much better. Look at that. These are some of the more advanced Google Dorks that I found. The top one's resume skimming. People post their resume. You can look for it. You can find it. And that, again, we talked about how one nugget of information can build into another nugget. The resume is a great place for that. You could look for companies. You could look for credentials. You could look for social media. You could look for email addresses, et cetera. Personal fitness habits. Does anyone know what Strava.com is? Yeah, you can go work out and post your workout and show the internet how cool you are because you did your workout. So recent news, there is a French aircraft carrier that this guy was posting his workouts because he was running a lot. He was an officer on this French aircraft carrier, and he was posting it on Strava. That was exposing where this aircraft carrier was moving. This is a military secret that was being released by some dude that was just working out, right? Venmo transactions, that's a fun one. You can find out where your money's been going. Someone else can find out and say, hello, you called me with a Venmo transaction. I want my money back or something like that. Family data is a big one. The less obvious data, you can see the little minuses right here. So you can do first, last. You're going to find a bunch of information on Facebook. You do the minus, cite Facebook. It'll get rid of any Facebook results. So you can kind of narrow down what you're looking for. The last one, again, the paste bin, looking for data breaches and things like that. You can use companies, you can use names, email addresses, domains, what have you. Okay, let's talk about PIMEYES, P-I-M-E-Y-E-S. This is a fun tool. It's facial recognition. You give it a picture, and it looks on the internet for more pictures of you. And this works. It's scary how good it works, right? You don't need an account. You can use an account and get more requests, but for free, you could do just a couple. Here's me. So I gave it this, this is my selfie from my work, and it's just a selfie. And in instant, it found pictures of me. These are pictures from Boise State when I worked there. But it also gives me pictures of people that aren't me. This is some guy in the Netherlands. So imagine what a hacker could do. Imagine what a stalker could do with this information, right? Find a picture off of an Instagram, LinkedIn, school, and then find more. Again, building nuggets, increasing the amount of information that you find and moving with it. Okay, this is another fun tool. It's called hunter.io. I talked about cross-verifying, of finding a piece of information and using that to divert somewhere else. Hunter.io is fantastic for that. What it does is you could give it an email address for a company, let's say Microsoft.com, Tesla, probably Jump, and it will correlate and find other email addresses that are associated with that. It'll give you names, email addresses, titles, and things like that. And it'll give you a whole big list of them. I did it for Boise State, and I found CIO, I found instructors, I found legal, I found HR, I found all sorts of names. And then again, that nugget you could use somewhere else. The problem with Hunter.io is some of the data is outdated. Some of it's missing. I looked for it still had Marlene Trump as the president of Boise State. She's not the president anymore. So thought that was interesting. Oh my goodness. Okay, so advanced OSINT tools. So we talked about, there's so many things that are missing from this. Another fun piece of information is, and I would love to show it, but I have the wrong PowerPoint. Public information like property records. You could use a True People search, and True People search will reach out to the internet, and we might demo that here in a second, now that I think about it, and it'll find information. I did this about a month ago on the current president of Boise State, a guy named Jeremiah Shin. I found his phone number, I found his age, and I found his address. I had no account, I had nothing. And I plugged that address into Ada County, we're gonna go back, into Ada County property records, and I found his house. I found his address, I found out his house, and I started Googling a little bit. I started Googling the address, I started Googling his last name, and I found Instagram pictures, and I found all sorts of things. And it was pretty easy to dig into, quite honestly. Here's a caveat though. I tried it again last night, and his information has been scrubbed from True People search. So there are ways to remove your data from these services. So very interesting. I wish I could show you, but I have the wrong freaking.
So quick question, when you did that search, do you think that triggered that scrubbing?
No, I don't think the search, so True People search is its own organization. If you're searching for someone, I highly doubt that they have any way of knowing that people are searching for them. It's more or less a Google search. It's a good question. Okay. Let's talk about some advanced tools. Some of these we're not going to talk about today. Maltego. These tools are more or less found on Linux, Kali Linux, and there's a whole host of open source tools that are on there. Maltego is a big one. Maltego is a relationship builder. What you could do is you could feed it an email address, a Bitcoin address, phone numbers, names, and things like that. And it'll search the internet and start building relationships between them. Right? Okay, so here you could drop in the seed of information and it'll explode into web connections. A seed is a piece of information again. So I keep talking about the cross-verification and looking for more information. This is that tool kind of on its own. It queries dozens of databases. So here are some of the databases. You can kind of see there's virus total, there's a news transform, so it'll look for those. MaxMind does geolocation, URL scan, CrowdStrike, ThreatCrowd, Full Contact is a cool one. It's exactly what it sounds like. It'll give you geolocation, it'll give you domain, it'll give you IP addresses, really whatever tool, and there's hundreds of them. There's hundreds of different tools out there. They're public databases of all sorts of information that you can know. Maltego is a good one. I added my email address here, and I did just a simple web search, and it reached out to all of these different organizations and found my email address in their account. You could see andrews.edu, a couple different universities I've applied to. It talks about X, it talks about Google, Reddit, etc. If you have an account out there, Maltego can find it. Maltego can find where your account is stored. Here's a fun one. You could use, I talked about have I been pwned a little bit ago. Maltego can look for that. Maltego can find I did my email address. I ran a transform against have I been pwned, and it pulled all the breaches where my username, my email address was found. Roll20, Robinhood, Cafe Press, Twitter, etc. And you can find, if you pay a little money, you can find more information on these breaches. I could have gone to have I been pwned myself. I just didn't. I knew about all these beforehand, but it's cool. So here are some of the Maltego transforms. I talked about that. You give it a nugget of information and it'll expand it out more. You could do email to person, email to phone number, person to email address, social media account. You could do email to LinkedIn profile, Twitter names, domain to web technologies, domain to DNS names, IP addresses, geolocation, email to have I been pwned. I talked about that one. Email to leaked credentials, kind of the same thing. IP to Shodan, IP to malware families, etc. So you give it one piece of information and there's dozens of different transforms that you can run, right? So one more kind of transform, they're called Maltego machines. These are predefined or customized transforms that you could run, that you could build. A bad actor could build transforms. Once they get some sort of information about you, the one nugget, they can build a machine to automate looking for you, building those transforms right there. I tried Boise State, and this is a pre-built one. It's called Company Stalker. It does exactly what it sounds like. I gave it boisestate.edu, just the domain name itself, and it gave me dozens, hundreds of email addresses, all of the email addresses associated with Boise State. And then it gave me links. So here's one, admissions.boisestate.edu. It gave me a link to contact Boise State. Here's one, the president at boisestate.edu. Here's a contact for the president. I could give it this. I could give it this president.boisestate.edu, and it would give me more transformations just on that one. It'll give me 25. You get 25 transformations for the free account. So 25 transformations on where else is president@boisestate.edu located, right? And then you could take that. You can go, you could find Jeremiah Shin's email address. You can find Jeremiah Shin's email address and plug it in here and find way more information about it. Where is Jeremiah Shin's personal email address out there? You could find it. It's kind of scary. Okay, let's talk about Spiderfoot. This is another tool that's used for open source intelligence. This one is also on Kali. It's a command line tool. And it kind of does the same thing as Maltego. It's just more automated. You can kind of set it and forget it, and it presents you a really pretty report. If everything goes well at the end of my presentation, we are going to demo Spiderfoot. Like I said, everything is correlated into a single report. This is what the scan looks like. You run it, and you got scan targets, whether domain names, IP addresses, subnets, Bitcoin addresses, email addresses, human names, usernames, whatever. It'll do the same thing. It'll query dozens of user base. You don't have to run individual transforms like you do with Maltego. You just put your name in there and click go, and it does it. And it presents a really pretty report. Another tool that's really fun is called the Harvester. This one's a little more broad. You can use the Harvester to kind of set it and forget it. It doesn't make a pretty report. You got to kind of play with it a little bit to make a pretty report. But it does kind of the same thing. You can give it an email address. You can give it a name. You can set how aggressive you want it to be. And the Harvester will reach out to the internet, and as aggressive as it is, it'll find the information and it'll build the correlation. And a bad actor could use that to do whatever. ReconNG, this is kind of, in my opinion, this is probably the most professional open source intelligence tool that there is. This is kind of the gold standard, if you ask me. It's repeatable, it's scriptable, it's modular. It does many of the same things as the Harvester or Spiderfoot or Maltego, but it's more professional. You can modular. You can output. You could take the output of Recon NG and put it into Maltego. You could take the output and make it a PDF report. You could put it into a SIM. You could put it into an EDR. You could do all sorts of things with it. You could put it into, I mean, you name it. And Recon NG at the end will try to do a demo. Okay, so some of the advanced, so we talked about some of the basic tools like the public data searches and Google Dorks and things like that, and property record searches. And then we kind of talked about, I've been kind of hammering on some of the more basic tactics of like correlation of data and cross-referencing and things like that. Some of the more advanced tactics is just making that more, right? More at scale, more automated, things like that. Cross data set linking. So things like Maltego and Spiderfile, all these tools that you could use to build a picture about a certain data set over here, whether it's social media profiles or professional profiles off of LinkedIn or whatever. And then you can take that data and cross-reference it to a personal set of data, whether it's social media or whether it's educational data. And it goes broad. And you could do it from personal data, and you can extend it out to like cyber data, right? You get a domain name, a personal domain name of someone who happens. Like mine could be adambrendon.com or something like that. And if I had that domain and I had email addresses associated with it and I had, I don't know, an LLC associated with it or something like that, you could build these relationships. You could build these types of correlations. And if you were a bad actor, you could act on those. Infrastructure mapping, same kind of thing, right? So if you have a company that has a cloud environment and let's say an on-premises environment, you can use these tools to build out that environment. It's not that outrageous to think that you could find out where your mail server exists, your web servers, your remote employees, for instance. Like, it goes pretty deep. API scraping, we talked about that. There's dozens of APIs that one could use. Many of them are free to reach out to the internet and find more, right? Automation, like not only can you cross-reference more information to touch more information, you could do it in an automated way. One of the fun things about Recon NG is you can keep it running live and just keep that script running, looking for more information, building on itself, dump that into Maltego. Maltego will build live relationships as they happen. So if you sign up to, say you're not on Instagram, right? And you sign up your email address for an Instagram account, if this is running an automated way, it'll build that relationship live, right? So it's kind of scary. Breach aggregation's another fun one. There are dozens of information on the clear web and the dark web that show breaches of different severities. And again, these tools can be used in an automated way to automatically collect and build on these breaches. So these are some of the more advanced techniques and procedures. We talked about the tools. These are the techniques or whatever. Weaponization. This is another slide that didn't make it here. Weaponization. This is really the key of what I'm talking about here, right? Who cares? Who cares that all this information is out there? Who cares that really anyone can go reach out? It matters. It matters because people can weaponize it. Bad actors can weaponize this information and make credit cards in your name, stalk, harass. And in the age of AI, it's even scarier. Now they can impersonate your voice and call your family. Now they can spoof your email address and quit your job if you want to, right? Like, it's really, the amount of information that's out there is closely tied to the capabilities of these bad actors, whether they're stalkers, whether they're harassers, whether they're state actors. Like, there are plenty of states out there that are looking for your and my information just to exploit us. Okay, so I talked a lot about like why it's bad. Now, what can we do about it? So we're going to talk about defensive strategies. One of the defensive strategies is simply to reduce your attack surface. Find out what is out there. It would behoove yourself to Google yourself, to use some of the Google Dorks that I've talked about here. There are plenty of Google Dorks that are online, and you can talk about, or you could go find what information is out there. And just like just like I talked about a little while ago, I use True People Search to look for the president of Boise State, and I was not able to find him yesterday. I think he probably has a team that's going and scrubbing that record, right? So you could do that yourself too. Opt out of data broker sites. It's kind of tedious, but it's important. You can go to True People Search. You can go to White Pages. You can go to all of these data broker sites, and you can send them an email and say, hey, take my name off of this.
Are there any legal rules that we may have to do that or not?
It's a very good question. I'm not sure if there's a legal rule to it. Like if you ask and they don't do it, what are the ramifications of that? I don't know the answer to that question, but it's
In Europe, yes.
absolutely.
Area everywhere else.
I think that's a really good question. That's a really good point. I think you're right. Like like with the GDPR, the CCPA, or whatever, if these businesses want to work in these jurisdictions, whether it's Europe or California, yeah, I think they would probably do it. That's probably the legal framework. But if it's a small mom and pop shop here in Idaho, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they would I mean, they should, obviously, but would they, and if there are legal ramifications from that? It's a very good question. There are tools out there. There's a tool called Incognito. If anyone's been watching YouTube for the last year, you've probably heard of Incognito. Everyone's trying to advertise with it. It's a great service. You pay, I don't know, like $15 a month or something like that. And it, on your behalf, it'll reach out to these data broker sites and ask you to be removed. I do it, and ever since I started with Incognito, I've gotten dramatically less telemarketer calls and weird emails and things like that. So it's that. I'm not sure the full extent of where the service like Incognito reaches out to, but from my anecdotal experience, it has been very useful.
For the data broker sites, doesn't it need to do like routinely, or is it once in a?
I would say routinely. I imagine, frankly, I don't know where they get their information from, but I imagine if they get it once, they'll get it again, and they're like incentivized to get it again and post that kind of thing. So, good question. Yeah, absolutely. They get it through OSINT. Yeah, see, I should have said that. Okay, thank God. Another thing we all could do to protect ourselves is audit the social media privacy settings. Go to your Facebook, go to your Instagram, go to your LinkedIn. What are you showing? What are you sharing? Like, what is being seen? What is your family sharing? What is your coworkers sharing? What are your officers on your French aircraft carrier sharing, right? Like, it's important to really audit these because social media is a giant a sieve of information. There's a lot of information that's being leaked. And it comes from everywhere. It comes from Ancestry. It comes from Strava. It comes from Venmo. It comes from more than just Instagram and Facebook. Speaking of Instagram and Facebook, EXIF data from photos. EXIF data, I can't remember what EXIF stands for, but whenever you take a picture with your phone, there is metadata that is stored with your picture that tells what kind of camera was used to take this picture, where were you when you took this picture, the geolocation. And the way it used to be, if you shared that picture on Instagram, you can look at that EXIF data. So if we were here at Jump and I took a selfie and I posted it on Instagram, someone in China can know that I was here at this lat long, at this time, at this address. But luckily, I think since 2012 is when they stopped doing it. Instagram and Facebook scrubbed EXIF data by default. Whenever you post a picture to pretty much any social media, the EXIF data is automatically scrubbed. I thought that was interesting. Solid question. That's a solid point, right? Like, just because they scrubbed it from being public doesn't mean that they don't have it stored in some back server somewhere. That's a solid point. Another reduction of attack surface is to use a PO box. Is used to use a registered agent, right? Use someone else to carry your mail, and they can forward you whatever mail is relevant, and they can take all the advertisements. Advertising is a little side here. Is a nefarious thing, right? It seems I'm sure everyone here has had the experience of talking about something and then seeing it on their phone shortly after talking about it. This is OSINT. This is what they're doing. Companies are using OSINT just as much as people are, and using and reducing your attack surfaces in any way. We're not going to get rid of our phones. That's inevitably, like, here we are. We're tied to these little devices, but using things like a registered agent or a PO box is one way to really dramatically reduce your attack surface. More defensive strategies is credential hygiene. Does anyone use a password manager? Definitely use a password manager. They are really good. I don't like the online ones. Bitwarden's okay, but LastPass got breached. There are ones that you can store locally. There's one called KeePass, and it will store all your passwords locally. You don't have to remember anything. You have to remember one good password, and you can make all the rest of your passwords as crazy and as complicated as possible to reduce the chance that someone's going to brute force it or rainbow table it or whatever. Another thing that you could do for credential hygiene is enable MFA. Everyone should enable MFA as anywhere that they can. Multi-factor authentication. If you sign in somewhere, you should have, that's something that's one factor. You should have something to show that another form that you have, right? It sends a text to your phone. It sends a little PIN number that you have to type in. It sends, if you have something cool like a YubiKey where you press a little button and it works, right? MFA, MFA, MFA. Another thing, credential hygiene, like we talked about, is monitoring, have I been pwned, right? This is going to this website to find out if these credentials have been leaked in any of the big public breaches. One thing I like to is assume any old email addresses, they've been breached. If you have a Yahoo account that you haven't used in a decade, it's probably been breached. So don't send anything there. Reset your password if you can. If you have an old MySpace account, you better change the password because it's probably been breached, right? The third kind of defensive strategies, think like a bad guy. Think about the information that you have released onto the internet. What can a bad guy use that for, right? Well, if you go through the Google, if you start Googling yourself and you find your social security number out there, what can you do about that, right? One thing you could do is to freeze your credit. That's something else I wanted to include here and I just didn't. Freezing your credit is a wonderful way to mitigate any damage from identity theft or things like that. I think people's credit should be frozen by default, but that's another conversation. Individual data points are harmless, but correlated data points can be used. Correlated data points can be used to attack and things like that. PII can be affirmed. Publicly identifiable information can be inferred by small individual nuggets of information which can be built, right? If a noob can find it, like me, if I can Google it and find it, a bad actor can find it faster. A bad actor can find it more places and they can correlate it, right? Okay, here's a challenge for all of you. Let's do a self-audit. You can do it now, you can do it later, whatever. Google your name. Put your first name, last name into Google within quotes. What's out there? You'll probably find your LinkedIn profile. You'll probably find your Instagram if you have one, Facebook, whatever. But what else is there, right? This is a demo that we can all do right now. You can add relevant Google dorks, right? Your first name, your last name, your address. And you could do -site Facebook. You'll find your Facebook, you'll find your LinkedIn. What else is there? True people search. That's my favorite data broker. You don't need an account. Go to truepeoplesearch.com, put in your name. Do you find your address? Do you find your phone number? Do you find your relatives? Do you find your relatives' age? Do you find your relatives' addresses, right? Your poor grandma who's living in a nursing home, her address is out there. She doesn't know, right?
There are like at least 3 fake versions of True People Search that show up when you try to search for it.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a good point. Like those data broker sites, that's why I keep hamming on True People Search. It's the only one that I found that's like good, because there's so many other ones that are kind of crap. They're behind a paywall. You can send it information and it'll be outdated. It'll be wrong, frankly. It won't have your information. There's another Adam Brendan out there that lives in like Florida or something, and he's younger than me, and he doesn't look anything like me. But when I search my name on True People Search or one of the other ones, I find him. So, and another self-audit that you could do now, you could do it later. Go to Have I Been Pwned. This is, if there's one recommendation I can give you all, it's that. Go to Have I Been Pwned, look for your information, find those accounts that have been released in breaches, change the passwords. Really, really, really important. Okay, what do we got? We got 10 minutes left, wonderful. Questions, concerns?
Quick clarifying question. So is information that has been from a previous breach that makes up like the dark web or even the public web, is that considered OSINT? So a company gets breached, they steal data, hackers upload it, does that fall under OSINT?
I guess it matters. I think the short answer is yes. It matters where that information gets posted to. If it gets posted to a clear site like a paste bin, I would consider it OSINT. If it gets posted to the dark web, to me, it's still OSINT because I mean anyone could get on the dark web, anyone can install Tor and get there, but it's a little more gray, right? So good question.
As a follow-up to that, you began the presentation with a bit of a legality disclaimer. So, and I took that to mean if you can find it on the web, it's probably okay to possess it. How do you feel about, for example, credit card numbers? There are regulatory requirements around how you store them.
Absolutely.
So, if you come across them in an OSINT exercise, do you think the OSINTer should be obligated to adapt the protections required for the data that they find?
Solid question, right? And I would answer it. So what you're saying is if you find sensitive data on the internet in an open source way, are you as the finder required to do something about it, right?
Well, you will find it and you will then possess it, let's say.
Sure.
I'm not asking you, do you need a Robin Hood and go take that shit down? What I'm saying is now that you possess it, are you required to protect it the way regulatory requirements require?
Okay, so that's a good question. And there are a couple things that come to mind, right? Quick answer is no, right? You are not, I'm not a hospital. I don't have HIPAA requirements because no one's auditing me. You're a private citizen. And to also answer your question is it gets a little fuzzy, right? We didn't talk about the dark web today. I didn't want to talk about the dark web today because it gets fuzzy. It gets real sketchy real quick when you start talking about actual info. I didn't really post any information here about anybody. That was by design because I don't want to, while it may be legal to find and possess that information, someone could still sue me, right? Someone could still sue me if I posted a credit card number or something like that on here, if I posted some sort of PII about somebody. But when I found the address for the president of the university, I grayed it out. I grayed out his phone number. I don't want to be the one to expose that. I could probably still be sued for exposing that information. But for simply having it, I don't think that's something that someone can come after me for. Right. You're welcome. That's a very good question.
API scraping. What is the best way to protect yourself against API scraping? You know, as we continue to add SaaS platforms and create all of these connections, what is the best way to continually protect yourself against somebody out there that might be trying to hack your information?
Solid question. And then you bring up a good point, right? Like we are a more interconnected world in more diverse ways as time goes on. To protect ourselves against API scraping, keep your API keys secret, store them securely in a vault, whatever you have to do, lower your attack surface as best you can. At the end of the day, exposing anything to the public internet is exposing anything to the public internet, and someone else can touch it. Someone else can scrape it, find information, right? When I was in my undergrad, there was a lot of talk about like the truly most protected computer system is one that's not connected to anything, right? And it's the same thing for a SaaS platform. Like if you really want to secure everything, just cut it off. But then it doesn't work, right? Then it doesn't work as a SaaS platform. You have to be able to release some information, and at some point, some bad actor can find that information and use it against you. So best practices. Really the only thing I got for you. You know what I mean? Securely store your API keys, lower your attack surfaces, rate limiting, things like that. Geo-blocking, firewall, like, authorized IP address networks, ranges, and things like that. Other than that, I can't think of anything. You know what I mean?
I would suggest purchasing a commercial service to protect your APIs, because
Solid.
you gotta, it's moving way pretty faster than any individual can.
And they're constantly testing them and constantly, yeah.
And in the realm of AI, in this current situation with like Claude Code and things like that, like, who knows what's next? Who knows who the attack surface, what tomorrow's attack surface is going to be like on these SaaS platforms? So just do the best you can. Like, that's the only thing I know. You know what I mean? Good question.
Would it be a good way to reach out to you to get the slides if we wanted to run profile on ourselves?
Talk to me after the presentation. I can give you my email address.
I had a question about in-person attack services. For example, there's a lot of wearable tech that they have glasses and a lot of techniques someone to have their face, right? And there's videos of people able to got their face running through like facial reverse image search engines, being able to pick up information that way. It's one way to like gather information about people in person. So is there an attack service that protects itself against in person and not just online?
You're talking like biometrics, right? Like generally,
Even biometrics, but even like maybe you have your car moves a certain way, or like
your gait, the way you walk.
sure.
Yeah.
And maybe that's like accessible to OSINT, right? And how do people like avoid that being combined with the rest of their data to put them in comprehensive profile?
Yeah.
How that works maybe from that aspect? That's something.
It's a solid question. Frankly, I don't know the answer, right? Again, same thing with like the API scraping on a SaaS platform. Just do the best you can, right? Lower your attack surface. I don't add my facial recognition to my phone. I know it's recording my face. I know it's doing those things, but I do my best to kind of keep that information off there. Same thing with my thumbprint. Like, I don't like putting my thumbprint on anything and having that, binary code, those zeros and ones stored on the internet somewhere, because someone else can steal those zeros and ones and use it offensively. So again, it's about lowering your attack surface. Meta glasses, that's an attack surface I didn't think about. Like, that's a huge attack surface, especially as time goes on. And like, people are playing Pokemon Go, right? And they're moving their cameras around like this, and that tool is scanning in live that 3D environment and storing it probably somewhere in Taiwan or China or something like that. And that data is being stored. So again, you can't control exactly the information that's being released, especially faces. You want to get more extreme, they have like facial recognition scarves, breaking scarves and like coats with like weird eyes and circles and stuff. That's inevitably going to be fashion in the future to kind of break these facial recognition software. Very good question. Yeah.
I don't know if this is useful, but it's something I do.
Okay.
Just want to get your opinion on it. I kind of create like a false persona for stuff that's not that close to me. Like if it's my bank, sure, you get my name, you get everything, my social security number. But if it's some free social media service that I don't have to get a credit card for, I'm not going to give them my email address with my name in it. So I kind of have this like the false persona attached to that I use for kind of junky stuff.
Sure.
Now, I'm sure sometimes they'll be able to like, map those two together, but it makes it less likely.
Yeah, that's a wonderful idea. That's something I never really considered, because my email address is my first name, last name, 1@gmail.com, right? Like, it's super simple. It's super easy to find, and I use it everywhere. I probably shouldn't. But yeah, create a false. You can make social media profiles with your wrong name and give those to people. I could be Adam Brendan privately, but I could be John Smith publicly, and have business cards and have an email address and a social media profile, and so that's a solid idea. That's a good way to reduce your attack surface. Excellent questions, everybody.
If you wanted to know like disposable email addresses for doing things like that, the easiest one to remember is there when sharklasers.com.
Shark lasers.
Your bullshit. If I want to be like Sharply associated with your name. And there's plenty of disposable boxes like that. And they'll just pull, you know, you sign in, it gives you the verification code, a thing you could like log into at Sharp Lasers, and you put in your thing. It'll delete it, you know, group follow to at Sharp Lasers. It'll delete that after a certain amount of time, but you just register it again when you have to go back to whatever thing, you know, your cool thing that you're researching that you don't want everybody else to know.
Solid point. I'm trying to remember the name of it. There's a fancy word that they call those. I can't think of the fancy word. Disposable. That's good enough. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. So building false personas, using temporary email addresses. You know, there are creative solutions far beyond than anything that I presented. So, other questions? Thank you so much for being a part of my very first professional talk.